And now we can get into the first beep of the first day.
Yeah, we started off with a bit of a bang because I got a really bad bloody nose on the first beep,
Mhm.
which was super random. I like grew up getting bloody noses, and I since moving out west have gotten more because of the dry air. But anyway, basically the way that I structured each beep, um, I did like a kind of a little bit of a list in my phone. So I did time, doing, moment, voice, visuals, physical. And
Mhm.
then as I went through the other beeps, I realized I also wanted to add feeling. So for the first one, the time was 8:43 a.m. Doing, I got a bloody nose while washing my face with hot water. So I was leaned over the sink, yelling out for my housemate to please come bring me toilet paper because I was nervous about getting blood on her carpet. The exact moment that the beep went off was my housemate had just gotten upstairs and we were talking about why this might have happened. And she was in the middle of suggesting that she gets light bloody noses when it's really dry out. So in that moment, as she was saying that to me, what I was hearing in my head was my own voice asking questions of why this might have happened. So am I dehydrated? Am I not drinking enough water? Is this because I'm running more? Or am I nervous slash stressed about this evening because I was going to like meet new people that evening? Um, or maybe it's because of how hot the water was on my face. Like all these thoughts were kind of just going through, but I'm hearing them sort of like conversationally in my own voice. Visuals, nothing in my mind. And then physical was a bloody nose. So that's where I started.
Okay, so you get this bloody nose, um, and you're talking to your roommate. This is the thing right before the beep,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going through all these thoughts. If you're dehydrated or running too much, or this or that. So, so we still have a lot of options of what could be before, like directly before the beep at this moment. So, I don't
Mm.
wanna, so I'm going to list possibilities, but it could be something else entirely. Um, but you're kind of running through options, and you mentioned a lot of them, like dehydrated, running too much, meeting new people, and nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Are these are these all right before the beep in the very first millisecond? And they could be. They could all be there, or it could be one of these things more specifically you mentioned, or it could be something else.
I think the actual moment of the beep was it cut my friend Amy off mid sentence where she was saying, I typically get them when it's really dry out. And while she was saying that, I I was kind of running through these questions in my mind. So like I can hear her speak, but I'm also hearing these questions that I'm trying to work it out in my head. Is this also because it's dry? Is it because I'm running more or dehydrated?
Mhm.
Um, so the actual moment probably would have been one of these many questions that I'm asking myself.
Okay.
Probably closer to probably the dehydration one because she was mentioning dry. So I feel like in that moment I would have been like, okay. But I was kind of rapidly cycling through all these.
Okay. So you think it probably would have been just one of them? I don't want to discount. It could be that you have all of them at the same time. I don't want
Mm,
to discount that. It could be that they're so fast it's like one after the other. Or it could be that it's really maybe a couple seconds on one, a couple seconds on the other. I don't think we'll be able to tell for this sample.
mm,
And that's just the first day. Like on other days, you might be able to say, oh, it came really on this specific thought, the dehydration one.
right.
Or it came specifically on the nervous about meeting new people thought. So, so that might be something we'd be able to find out on different days. Um, I wouldn't push too hard on this day because I just think we all won't be sure. Um, So we have that. And then another thing I would like to find out more about, you say it's your voice, you're talking to yourself. And I would want to ask more details about that. But I think since we're not sure if it's one question or many of them, I don't want to ask specifics about that yet.
Okay.
But I do wonder about the bloody nose, because you said you're experiencing this voice and physically you're experiencing this bloody nose. Do you think is that physically, or not necessarily physically, is that present to you at this moment in your experience, or is that just an action that's happening? So to make a comparison, like you're sitting in a chair now and you can feel that on your back probably, but before I turned your attention to it, it might have really just been background and not directly experienced. So do you think the physical bloody nose part is?
I think I understand your question. So are you saying, is the voice in my head tied to my physical experience, in the sense that, actually, sorry, can you repeat it?
Because you did a list.
Yeah.
The voice, and then I think you had a feeling or sensation part of that, and you said the bloody nose was the physical part. Is that are you physically feeling something at this moment?
Yeah, I mean, like I can feel my feet underneath me. I can feel like my hands on my laptop, stuff like that. But I'm not necessarily voicing those physical
Okay. I'm not asking
experiences.
if you're voicing it at the moment, but if you're physically feeling it in a way that's more present than just like right now, like your feet are touching the ground or something. But before I called your attention to it, it probably was just background.
Correct. Yeah.
So is anything more than background?
Um, I occasionally get back pain that I would say is not, like, that's more present, and I'll think about it in response as well. But I would say most things physically are background, unless like a bloody nose kind of calls your attention. Um,
But right before this beep specifically,
mm,
or right at the beep, at the very
at the
millisecond.
beep, I think I mean, at the beep, I was leaned over the sink bleeding. So I was pretty present in that, both mentally and physically.
So you leaned over the sink talking to your roommate.
Right.
Okay. Um, so yeah, again, this is the first beep, and we might find out more on other beeps, but it could be, for example, it could be like you leaned over the sink and your nose is bleeding. But right now, what's really most in your head is just wondering why. Is it the
Mm,
dehydration? Or it could be you're running through reasons why, but also physically you can feel the blood coming out of your nose or something. So that's a distinction, or that might not be relevant to you, but uh,
mm. I think the biggest things like leading up to the beep that were going through my mind were, I don't want to get blood on this carpet in the bathroom, and
mhm.
I want to know why this is happening so it doesn't happen again. Those were the two main occupying sort of thoughts. And then in that exact beeping moment, I think I was leaning towards dehydration just because Amy had suggested that.
Okay. So you think you're leaning towards dehydration.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm actually going to ask a few more specifics on that because I said before that maybe we weren't sure if it was dehydration or if it was nervous about meeting new people or this or that.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think, yeah, I would like to ask more about the dehydration. Could you say what that exact thought was?
Verbally, in my mind, it was kind of, am I dehydrated? Am I running too much? I'm training, for context, I'm training for a marathon. And I was told by someone that I need to be drinking a gallon of water a day. So by saying like, am I dehydrated? It almost was like, oh, I'm not doing enough. You know what I mean? I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think that's like the context of the thought. But in that moment, it was just more of a walking through a list of all these potential reasons.
Okay. So it was a list of potentials, but you think dehydration was the latest one? Or is it maybe dehydration tied to running too much? Something like, am I dehydrated because I'm running too much?
Exactly. Yeah. I think all these reasons are almost overlapping in, I guess, some broader context of like the marathon, not drinking enough and stuff, and being kind of busy to the point where I'm not training properly. And then that evening I meant to meet new people. So I was kind of, yeah, just running through, I guess, like contextually what it could have been. But dehydration was top of mind because of Amy's comment, which is the exact moment the beep cut her off mid-sentence.
Okay. The beep cut her off. So she was talking. Yeah, you mentioned that before. She was talking and you had these thoughts going?
Yes.
Were you also experiencing her talking? As in, she is talking and you're processing that. You're hearing what she's saying in some way. Is what's most in your experience your own thoughts or also her talking or both?
I would say in that moment I was more present and listening, but I will say more broadly, like I tend to almost like rehearse what I'm going to say before I say it. So as you're asking that question, I was thinking of my response and I'm listening to you. I can hear you, but I also have a voice in my head thinking through how I want to respond.
Okay. But I want us to stick to this beep specifically because it might be different from how you generally, or how you think you generally respond, if you're thinking of a response or not. But when you're running through lists of why you're dehydrated, of why your nose might be bloody, maybe it's you're dehydrated, is that more in terms of how to respond to her, or is it more just wondering why your nose is bleeding?
I think it's more wondering why out of a worry that it's going to happen again. So trying to get down to the root cause so that if it is dehydration, I can drink more water and then this won't happen again.
Okay. So could be motivated by that. All right. So I think I'll turn it over to Russ and Mel now. I think I still have some questions about this because at first you mentioned a lot of different thoughts you could be having. Mm-hmm. And we got more specific. It could just be dehydration, but maybe we're not totally sure. Maybe it's really quick thoughts in a row. But it's impossible to figure out everything on the first beep. So that's why we do this over many days. Russ or Mel, do you guys have questions or comments?
So I think I would prefer to go on to beep number 2 rather than to try to figure this beep out.
Okay.
But Mel,
At risk of, okay, I just had two burning questions for me, and I hope that I don't fuck this up. But the two burning questions I wrote down, Kerry, were I'd be interested in asking, is there a percentage split that you could give between the voice in your own head being like, so your awareness at that time in the moment before the beep, what's the percentage split between the voice in your own head and the physical sensations in terms of hearing your housemate and also feeling the bloody nose?
I think it'd be hard to give a percentage split. But for this particular moment, I would say the voice was quite loud in my head because I really don't want to get a bloody nose in public. And so I think immediately this became kind of a worry. Going through that list became a worry. So that I would say the voice, I was paying more attention to the voice than I was the blood going down my face, for example. Like I was leaned over the sink, but I was looking at myself in the mirror going through these questions, not as concerned about wiping my face, if that makes sense. So the primary dominant thing in that moment was my list of questions that I was going through.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. And then the other thing on very similar, but you mentioned that voice in your head going through those things, and as you're listening to your housemate, my question there is just, is that a concurrent experience? Do both those voices happen at once in your awareness?
Yes. I never really noticed about myself until thinking about it more deeply, but I do sort of have, a double conversation going. Even as I'm speaking, I have thoughts in my head about, am I saying like too much? Or I could be going through a sentence, but I'm still having other sentences said in my mind at the same time.
No more questions from me.
Then, Julian, were you ready to go on to number 2?
We could go on. I'll say one thing is I don't want to pin down that there was a voice. Well, a voice could be different things for different people. It could be more just the thoughts, or it could be something specifically auditory. And that's still something I'm not sure about. So I want to keep that open for myself. But I guess, I still think it's early to say on that one. But should we go on for now?
So what's in your experience at the moment of the second beep?
I was, so it was 9:14. I was doing some work, but in the exact moment that the beep went off, I was actually sort of daydreaming about an upcoming rafting and kayaking trip that I'm going on. And at the moment of the beep, I had a visual of my sister and I in like dry suits and holding kayaks basically. And in my head, I was saying all the gear and absolutely no idea, which is kind of weird, but it was almost as though I was like daydreaming of an Instagram post. Like it was like visual, and I was like also coming up with a caption of what I might post in the future of this trip that's coming up. So it was both visual, and I was like hearing just that sentence, all the gear and absolutely no idea. But I was supposed to be working, and I was looking at my laptop in that moment.
So do I understand that at the moment that's interrupted by the beep, there's sort of two major things going on, related major things. One is I'm seeing myself and my sister in the kayak, excuse me, and the other is there are these words, all the gear and absolutely no idea.
Yes.
And those are simultaneous?
Those are simultaneous, yeah.
And is one of those more prominent than the other?
I would say in this instance, the visuals were a lot stronger. I knew exactly what section of the Snake River I was on outside of Grand Teton National Park. I could see the bridge that we were about to theoretically cross under. It was this scene that I was imagining is a scene that I've been to on a raft trip before.
And so at the moment of the beep, and by at the moment of the beep, I mean what is interrupted, pierced by the beep, so to speak. Do you see the bridge, or do you see your sister and you in the kayak, or both? Or
it's kind of both.
Tell me exactly what you see.
Yeah.
Right then, not before then or not after then or whatever, but what do you see?
I see a bridge crossing the Snake River on the left side, a curved bank with rocks. The river's flowing. My sister and I are in dry suits and helmets holding like kayaks, like propped up kind of. And then
Two kayaks?
Two kayaks. We each have our own kayak and we each have our own oar. I can't tell in the vision if we've already been kayaking or if we're about to go because we're kind of just off to the side. But I can see like the rocks, the trees around us, the river bending, and the bridge on the left side.
So the bridge is on the bridge is on the left side, and you and your sister are on the right side?
Yes, it's as if someone's taking a photo from the water, which would be difficult to do. But
okay. The imagination's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Plenty of things that are not possible to do. So does that mean that occupying most of what you see at this particular moment is the bridge, and you and your sister are a smaller portion off to the right?
I would say the bridge is more, it's like my sister and I are standing in a landscape photo. So the bridge is probably not primary. My sister, it's almost like I would say medium portrait. Like you can see our full body. You can see the expressions on our face. And the bridge is kind of there, but it's not super, it's detailed in that it looks realistic, but it's probably not accurate.
Okay. And as you look at it, is your sister to the left, or
I'm on the left, my sister's on the right.
You're on the left. And are you looking at the camera or looking at each other, or?
At the camera.
Okay. And is this picture in color?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gathering that this aspect is a quite clear, detailed, snapshotty deal. Is that right?
Yes.
And is there any? When I said snapshot, that was my word. And snapshot has a border around it. Does this have a border around it, or does it seem like you're just looking out into this scene?
It looks, there's no border. And there's also, even though we're describing it as a snapshot, there is movement. So, and I can also hear my sister's laugh, like almost like you're looking at a video of someone taking a picture. The photographer's not in there, but it's like a moving photo, and I can hear my sister's laugh, and I can hear the water and the trees moving. So it's auditory as well.
So it's like you're there. You're seeing this scene.
Yes.
That includes visual and auditory.
Yes.
And stuff. And do you see your sister move as she's laughing, or is?
Yeah, she kind of always does this thing where she like looks at me, like laughs, and then looks at the camera when we're taking a photo together. So she's kind of doing that.
Okay.
I'm looking straight at the camera.
All right. So I'm happy with that portion of this experience. Anybody else want to ask anything about that? And then there are the words, all the gear and absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
Are those present to you at exactly the same time as the picture?
Yeah, it's almost like I was looking at this scene and like brainstorming. This is really embarrassing, but brainstorming a future Instagram caption about a photo that we might take on this trip, if that makes sense.
And is it these exact words? All
Yes.
the gear and absolutely no idea?
Yeah.
And how are those words present to you?
How are they presented to me?
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm just hearing my voice. I mean, I'm not seeing any words on, like, I'm not visualizing it as like an Instagram post. I'm seeing the scene and I'm hearing my voice say all the gear and absolutely no idea. I'd finished that sentence in my mind and then the beep went off.
Okay. And so this is clearly your voice?
Yes.
And as your voice generally sounds, or is?
Yes. Yeah.
As if, as you're talking now, that's the voice that we're talking about?
Yeah, conversational pace in my voice.
And words unfolding one after another?
Yes.
All, okay. And is the phenomenon of hearing your voice or of speaking your voice? And I would like to make a distinction there of the sort of the difference between speaking into a tape recorder and hearing your voice come back out of a tape recorder. Same words, same voice, same inflection, same everything, except that in one case I'm more speaking it, and in the other case I'm more hearing
it. I think how I hear myself speaking now is how I hear my voice in my mind. So.
And so do you experience yourself now as hearing your voice speaking, or do you experience your voice right now as speaking?
I experience myself as hearing my voice speaking.
Even now when we're talking?
Yes. I think.
Okay. So what I would like us to leave that distinction as being, well, that's sort of weird or interesting or whatever, but let's not try to nail that down. Let's leave that as sort of an open question that, well, is this speaking or hearing when I'm talking?
Yeah.
It could be either way. And I don't have a favorite about that.
I also think I'm unsure about my answer. I would want to unpack that a little bit more before.
Absolutely. And the advantage and built into the procedure that we're undertaking here is that we're not particularly interested, we don't particularly value this particular beep. We're interested in this particular beep, but maybe even more important than this particular beep is next week or whenever we do this kind of a thing again, that we can profit from the experience that we're having today, and next time we'll have some practice in talking about it and practice in hearing what kind of questions people ask and whatever. And that'll shape how we respond next go around. So far what I've got is I'm seeing a picture. I shouldn't say a picture. I should say a scene. I'm experiencing a scene that's visual and auditory. And I am hearing, speaking, whatever, the words, the specific words that are sort of like a caption of an Instagram.
Yes.
And is the Instagram portion part of this experience? Like I'm planning an Instagram? Is that really true? I'm planning an Instagram?
I think it's more, I would describe this experience, this moment, more as a daydream. And then that caption, I was like, oh, that'd be kind of funny because my sister's a really good kayaker and I'm really bad. So it's more, I'm daydreaming about the scene, not necessarily like planning content, more so, oh, that would be a funny thing to write about this experience in the future. Does that make sense?
So I'm not sure that I understood that. So is the funny thing about the future present to you at the moment of the beep, or is that sort of the broad context of this daydream?
I would say it's, wait, can you say that again? Sorry.
Well, maybe that question is not the best question to ask, and so maybe we should just leave that question. So let me ask sort of a similar question, but in a different way.
Okay.
Is there anything else in your direct experience at the moment of this beep, other than I'm seeing the scene, experiencing the scene, and these words?
I'm physically sitting down, looking at my laptop, but I would say anything that I'm looking at, I'm not really taking in the information because this scene is very clear in front of me, if that makes sense. So I'm aware that I'm sitting down looking at my laptop. I'm aware of my surroundings, but I would say it's just an awareness. I'm not reading anything on my laptop screen, even though I'm looking directly at it, because this scene is very clearly in front of me.
And so the word awareness is sort of an ambiguous term for me. So does that mean before the footlights of my consciousness, I'm aware of this, or does that mean that I'm processing all this stuff?
I think,
for example, I could say right now, I'm aware of the screen that I'm looking at, and it's got black. It's black, and it's got 4 windows in it, and it's got an. But for the most part, I haven't been attending to that. I've been paying attention to Kerry, sort of zoomed in on Kerry, and the rest of that stuff. I'm aware that it's there, but I'm not really. I might as well have annihilated Mel and annihilated Julian at this particular moment. As far as my experience is concerned, they don't have anything to do with it. I'm into Kerry and trying to figure out what Kerry's saying.
Yeah, that's kind of how I would describe it. For example, I am aware that there's a bunch of folders on my desktop, but I'm not reading any of them, even though I'm looking at it kind of broadly because this scene is in front of me. So I can vaguely see things, but I'm not processing it in the sense that I'm not I can't tell you what's in those folders because I'm not really paying attention to it.
So as we go forwards, I think it'll be of interest probably to determine how much of that awareness is actually directly present and how much of it is being processed. So I think it's quite possible that your bag of bones, your brain and neurons and whatever, is processing a whole lot of stuff all at the same time. Mostly you're skillfully processing it. You're sitting on the chair. Your backside is processing what's on the chair because you haven't fallen off the chair or whatever. But you're not saying, oh, this is the way the chair feels, and you're not really making that specific. And so I would say, well, that's probably not before the footlights of your consciousness. It's there. You're processing it skillfully, quite obviously. But that's a distinction that we'll want to keep in mind. Mm. So I'm happy with that. Anybody else want to ask anything?
I think I have a less clear picture of the image than Russ or you, Kerry, for that matter. So you're to the left, your sister's on the right. Mm-hmm. You point as if from the river.
Yes. So
Go ahead.
My sight is almost as though I see myself, but I it's as if someone asked me, hey, can you take a photo of these two girls on the riverbank? And this bridge is on the left side. So, but I don't really know who that perspective is. It's not identified as not a clear person. So I'm seeing from their point of view. So I see they're on a raft, theoretically, or some sort of mechanism that's holding them up in the water because the water is in front. Then there's a rocky beach. My sister and I are standing. I'm on the left, she's on the right. And then the bridge is further to my left, slightly in the distance, but not too far.
Okay. I see it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So
can I ask a question and I might get yelled at? Have you been to this place before?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
My sister for her wedding, had like a rafting trip that we did. And the place that I'm visualizing is the place where the raft trip ended.
Okay. Number three.
I was reading an email, and basically, so I'm a graphic designer, and a client was giving me feedback on a logo design. So I was reading her feedback line by line, and the beep went off when I was like mid-sentence. But as I'm reading the email, there's no visuals, but I'm reading it out loud in my mind. So her email said, looks great. I think we can remove the 2 dots on either side. So there's only one or maybe a diamond in black instead. And the beep went off when I was reading maybe a diamond in black because she did an emoji. And so I was paused there.
Okay. So you're reading maybe a diamond in black, maybe a diamond in black?
Yeah.
And that's in texts, in written letters or with an emoji or?
So her entire email was text-based, but instead of writing out the word diamond, she used a diamond emoji. So I kind of paused there for a second because the diamond was red, but she was saying in black. And so I paused because I wanted to make sure I was getting the feedback correct, but it was all like I wasn't visualizing anything. It was just my voice looking at the screen. And I would say I was more aware of what was on my screen in this moment. Yeah.
So you're reading this email, the diamond in black, and is it more about the voice, or more about looking at the screen, or more about thinking about what it means?
I would say I wasn't putting any sort of thought into this. My aim was to absorb the information. So, yeah, in this exact moment, it wasn't necessarily, I wasn't like placing an opinion on whether this feedback was good or bad or anything like that. I was just strictly reading her text, absorbing the information, but sort of in an auditory way.
Okay. And when you say your voice reading it, that's literal auditory, like something you can hear in some way, or is it voice more metaphorically, like the content coming to you somehow?
Yeah, I would say in this specific moment, this was my voice as I hear it, reading word for word, as though I'm like reading a book to myself, if that makes sense. So
okay. We could ask the same kind of tape recorder question that Russ asked before. Is it more about the voice as if you're speaking it into a tape recorder, or as if you're hearing it played back? Or does that not make sense?
Yeah.
The difference? Okay.
I think I answered incorrectly before. I think it's speaking, not hearing it played back. Not like it's not, I don't have any distance between the voice, if that makes sense. So exactly what I'm hearing right now as I'm speaking, that tone, that style of speaking, which feels, I guess, quite close to me, is in my mind as well.
Okay. So maybe more in the speaking. And again, It could be something that we might find more about later, but we don't have to pin it down too close on the first day. That's a tricky question. Is it as clear and auditory as when you're physically speaking it out loud, or not?
In this instance, when I was reading this email, it was very clear. I think in other instances, like, for example, when I was going through the questions about the bloody nose, those are harder to distinguish. I think some of them I could hear in my voice. Some of them it was like going, because the thoughts were going really fast. So it wasn't like my voice wasn't fast enough to keep up with the auditory thoughts. Whereas this, I think because I was reading and I was trying to digest the information, I was really focused. I was hearing just my voice. Okay.
It's your voice. Is it normal pitch and tone, or high pitch, low pitch, something else?
I would say normal. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I would say just normal with how I normally hear my voice.
Okay. And for speed, is it like, does it come with a sequence, a speed, as if you're reading sequentially, maybe Diamond in Black, or is it all at once, or how would you describe that?
I'm a pretty slow reader, so as I was reading this, it was like I wasn't speeding up anything. Like the pace would be like, looks great. I think we removed 2 dots on either side, so there is only room. There's only one, or maybe a diamond in black instead. That's the exact pace.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Would you say this experience, so maybe a diamond in black is the very last thing before the beep?
Yeah.
Would you say that's in some way a chunk that makes sense, or was it really about the whole sentence, but that just happens to be the last part of it before the beep? I don't know what that means.
I mean, everything was making sense to me. I think I just tripped up because she used an emoji in the middle of the sentence. So I was kind of like, wait, what? I was hoping she didn't want a red diamond in the logo design. So I kind of paused there and had to reread it. But that sort of hope of not wanting it to be red, that was not auditory. I don't really know how to explain that. So I can hear, like, I'm reading this email, that's all auditory, but where I stumbled, that desire to not want to put a red diamond in the logo was not something I was verbalizing. So it was kind of like two things happening at once. Like, I'm reading this email, but I paused on that red diamond because I was like, please, no, don't tell me to do that. But I wasn't auditorily saying that. So
the part that we've been talking about with the voice, this is a rereading of this part that you read before?
Yes, that exact sentence.
Okay. So there's this auditory kind of like reading, speaking, hearing it. And then there's this hoping it's not red.
Can we nail down a couple more details about the auditory before we leave that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I understand that the words are maybe a diamond in black, but there's something about but what you see is not the word diamond. What you see is a red diamond. And now, sort of late in this conversation, there's some kind of a pause or something. So could you tell me more about what actually the speaking experience is, hearing experience, whatever it is?
Mm-hmm. I didn't say in my mind red diamond. I didn't say the words red diamond. I read it as, or maybe a diamond in black instead. I still read it as diamond. But because the emoji diamond was red, that's where the pause kind of,
what I would like to know is the pause in the speaking, hearing, reading, whatever that is. So is it, or maybe a diamond in red, or maybe a diamond in red? I would like to know in the speaking portion whether it included a pause or something at the word diamond.
I don't think because I was trying to sort of do this quickly. So it was auditory, and I'm a slow reader, so it's not that fast. But I think I read it quickly as maybe a diamond in black instead. But then because I saw the red color in the email line, that's where I paused. So I still read it kind of quickly, but because there's color in that email line, which I'm not used to, that's where I was like, wait, and I had to read it again to see what she meant.
Okay.
And so there's a pause and hoping it's not red. Is it more about a pause or confusion, or hoping it's not red, or you're not sure about that part?
I think it was it was probably a little bit of confusion and a little bit of hope. Both coming from the root of this is going to look really bad. So A, why does she want to do that? And B, I really hope she doesn't want to do that because I don't want to do that. But those aren't auditory thoughts that I'm having. It was more of just, I don't really know how to describe it. Like, I'm reading the email, but I'm having almost like a subset of like emotions around what I'm reading, or secondary.
Okay. So some confusion, some hope. I guess I don't want to, it's hard to pin down. Emotions can be very hard. So let me think if I can ask some more good questions about this. Would you say it's between, let me see. is it more in confusion, more in hope, both simultaneously? Are they separate things? Are they part of the same thing? Or are you really not, like, is it really hard to say about this?
I would say it feels like it's coming from the same place. Like it feels like the same thing. Both because both of those two things, the hope and the confusion, kind of sit under just a desire of not wanting to do that. Which feels like one thing in my mind.
So it's kind of not wanting to do that. So I'm not thinking in words. I don't want to do that. But there's part of this. Is it like, would you say it's a clear thing, like clearly articulatable? I don't want to do that. Or is it kind of just like
I have no idea how to articulate where that thought/feeling was coming from, or how it was coming about in my mind. It was more almost like a guttural response. Like I was like, oh, I think I made a noise. Like I was like, oh, as I was reading it. So I was hearing the sentence of the email, but as I was hearing that sentence, I very quickly was just like, because I didn't want this to happen. But it's not that I was thinking, a direct quote, oh, I don't want to do that. That's not how that thought was coming about. It was more of almost like a feeling.
Okay. Did it have a bodily location, this feeling?
Probably my gut. Like just, yeah, I think as I'm kind of redoing it, like I stop breathing sort of, like I just like do that. Like I hold my breath and like flex my gut when I'm having something that's like having a feeling that's something I don't want to do, I guess.
Okay. But sometimes if you're thinking, it can be kind of tricky because if you feel something again now, like it could be close to the feeling you had then, or it might be a little bit different. But yeah, it could be like gut as in like a literal physical thing, or it could be gut more metaphorically, but yeah, maybe let's not pin this one down too much. But let me see if there's anything else I want to ask about this. So you might be making a noise too. Are you experiencing making this noise, or is it just kind of like an automatic thing that happens, but you're really mostly experiencing, reading it or?
Yeah. I definitely am most often not aware of like auditory like laughs or groans or anything when I'm processing things. If I'm looking at an Instagram post and I find it funny, I'll laugh without realizing I'm like laughing really loudly and it's annoying to people. So for this example, me making sort of a groan, I'm not fully aware of it, but I know I'm baseline aware that I'm doing that, but I'm more focused on what I'm hearing, which is the email and the feeling. Then the physical is probably like a third of that. So it's like, I hear my voice, I feel this emotion that I don't want to do the red diamond, and then I physically react. Those are kind of like the order in this moment.
Okay, so the physical groaning is like the least of it. Maybe background. Could even be totally background. So for this one, what I've got is I'm reading an email. I'm reading out loud, maybe a diamond in black instead. My voice. Diamond is the emoji, but I'm reading it like I'm as a word, and reading is more about speaking than hearing at this moment, but that could be a tricky distinction too. So I don't want to be like overconfident on that. And I also feel kind of confused, hopey feeling, like don't want it to be that. Like, and this one, it's unsure how, like, let me say what it is. It is kind of just one thing. It's not like two separate feelings of I feel confused and I feel hopeful. It's kind of just one thing.
Yeah. Just a general desire of not wanting to do that.
But I guess what's unsure for me is if it's super clear, as in like, I hope it's not that, like, even if there's no words to it, if it's clearly that, or if it's just kind of like, I don't know what I'm saying, but also you're physically making a noise, but that may be more background. So that's what I have on this. If Russ or Mel, you guys have questions?
Well, I am concerned, I guess. Let me ask some questions. I'm not sure that at this point that I can extricate the questions, but I would like to go back to what we've been calling feeling, but I'm not. And by the conversation, I haven't become convinced that there actually was a feeling involved. I'm gathering that there was some kind of a negative hope, kind of a deal that was part of this moment. But how or whether that was directly experienced, I think we have sort of reified that. And so I would like to unreify it. Not that I know what's going on here, but I think it's possible to be saying maybe a diamond in black and have that saying somehow reflect the fact that I am, my state is, my body is, my neurons are, whatever, hopeful that isn't the right thing. But that doesn't mean that I have a feeling that I hope that's the right thing. And we've sort of talked about it as if there was a feeling about that, which I'm not sure that I think maybe we have reified that or made it more of something than it is.
I don't fully know how to describe that element. So feeling might be the wrong word. Maybe reaction or, maybe reaction is better than feeling. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not either. And I think at this point it's probably there's too much water over the dam to figure it out. So what I really am doing in this conversation is thinking about next week or whatever, and that I don't want us to say, well, just because there's some kind of a reaction or feeling or whatever we're going to call it, that we call it a feeling and treat it like it was a standalone deal or a separate thing from the words or something. Maybe it was, or maybe it wasn't. So it's 10 o'clock, which is to say we've been at this for an hour. Should we say this is good, or should we do another one? Or
I've got 3 more beeps. I don't know. One's kind of funny.
I have time. I'm conscious of anyone else that has a tight work schedule, but I'm fine to hear more. But if someone has commitments, happy to call it. So speak now.
I'm fine to do, I think, one more.
All right, let's do one more.
One more.
Okay.
And you get to pick this one.
I'm going to pick this one because it's funny.
Yay.
At 10:34 a.m., I was standing in my kitchen, facing my sink, eating a banana and thinking about my finances. So the moment that the beep went off, I was doing math in my head, but I was saying the numbers out loud. So I was saying 900 plus 967 is roughly 1,800. So by the time I move here in August, I will actually be saving $300 a month. So the beep went off right as I was saying by the time I move here in August. So I was, there's no visuals. Like I was facing my sink, but I was, it's almost as though there's like a daze and I'm just I'm really focused on the voice in my head, which is doing the math, but it's saying the math out loud.
So the words are 900 plus 987. I couldn't keep track. 967. 900 plus 967 is roughly 1800.
Yep.
And so by the time I get here in August,
and then the beep goes.
And then the beep goes out. And so the beep happens somewhere in by the time I get here in August. By the time I move here. What are the exact words?
So by the time I move here in August, and then I was basically saying that I'll be saving money.
Okay. And the beep happens in there somewhere.
Yes.
Okay. And can you be more precise about where, or is it somewhere in that phrase?
I would say probably probably August is where it went off, because I definitely had said August.
But is
and
it?
The beep goes.
So by the time I move here in August, then the beep happens sort of at the end of that.
Yeah.
And there was a whole sentence before that, 900 plus 967, excuse me, or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Okay. And in one point I heard you to say that you were saying that out loud, and in another place I heard you to be saying this is in my head.
No, this was all in my head. I was eating a banana, so I was not speaking out loud.
Okay. And can you mimic for us how the speaking went?
Yep. So probably a bit slower than reading the email, because I'm bad at math. So I probably was like 900 plus 967 is roughly 1800. So by the time I move here in August, probably the second bit was probably faster. So by the time I move here in August, so the math was probably slow. And then by the time I move here in August, because that was a easier thought for me to come to.
Okay. And so by the time I move here in August, it sort of blurts out or spews out or okay. And this, we made a distinction between speaking and hearing. Is this I'm speaking this to myself? I'm hearing myself speak this? Or maybe that distinction doesn't make sense.
I think I'm speaking this to myself. Yeah. I think the way I would describe the voice in my head, it's almost as though I'm having a conversation with myself. Like I could respond out loud if I wanted to, but I don't talk to myself out loud. So it does feel more like speaking.
Okay. And is the quality of the voice quality of the speaking seem like your regular voice?
Yes. Probably more so for the math part of this one. And then by the time I moved here in August was like, I don't normally talk that fast. So probably less sounds like, it sounds less like my voice, my actual voice.
So the part that's actually interrupted by the beep is the part that's a little bit different from your regular voice, but still spoken, but just spoken fast, or is it even sort of?
It's still spoken. It's just faster. Sorry, I have something in my eye. It's just faster, but definitely still like I'm hearing it in my head.
Okay. And so I'm happy with that portion. Anybody else want to ask anything about this?
I want to check that Kerry's okay first.
I don't know what is going on with my eye. Sorry. It just like...
Do you need to grab something or whatever?
No, I'm okay. I'm good.
I have one question, just I guess about like perhaps volume and clarity. Is that what you're hearing in your head experienced, and Russ, you'll probably tell me this is a bad question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is that experienced in a way that is exactly the same as if you were to say it out loud in terms of clarity and volume?
I think so. I don't speak very loudly generally. So I think the voice in my head sort of mimics that. And in terms of clarity, I think where I get, where clarity in the voice sort of it dampens a bit is when I'm having like sort of racing thoughts, like really fast-paced thoughts. So it's less in my voice. Like it might start in my voice and then it kind of blurs a little bit. Yeah, that's how I would describe it generally.
So there's the banana in your environment and the kitchen sink in your environment. Are those part of your experience, or is that just a fact of the universe? I'm eating a banana and standing in front of the sink.
It's really not part of my experience to the point where I actually completely forgot that I had opened the banana because I was so like deep in my thought, and I had put the banana down on the counter once the beep went off so I could turn it off. And I like forgot that it was in my hand because I was very much focused on my thoughts. So even though I was holding a banana and chewing, I like was not aware of that really. Like I guess I was because I wasn't choking, but my focus was the math I was doing in my head and the thoughts about.
So that's a good example to nail down the issue that we were talking a little bit ago, and that is that your experience annihilates the world around you, or at least it can. Mm-hmm. Like there was a banana in your hand that you were skillfully holding. You weren't dropping the banana or squashing it and making banana mush out of it or whatever. You were skillfully dealing with the banana, but not experientially at all, apparently.
Yeah.
And that is the difference that we're interested in. We're interested in what's in your experience, not what you're processing. You're processing a huge number of things all the time, like bananas and sink views and and eye itches and frogs in throats, and we're doing all that stuff all the time. Mostly, mercifully enough, not an experience, but sometimes we have to deal with that. And but this study, what we're interested in is just that portion, which for some reason, whatever reason, and we don't actually even care about the reason most of the time, but has become what I sometimes say before the footlights of your consciousness, which at this time seems like this mental computation.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking to yourself about it. So I'm happy with that beep. Anybody else got anything to say about that?
I don't think so.
So by the time I move here in August, are you experientially, is there more to that? Like, so by the time I move here in August, I'll have enough saved up to buy a dog. I don't know. But is that part of it? Even if it's not verbalized, is something part of that or no?
I think the biggest thing is like contextually making a move weighs on my mind, just because there's a lot of logistics, trying to find a house, someone to live with, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this sentence, it wasn't so I could buy a dog. Like I'm not really worried about like what I'm buying in the future. It's more like making my future, just general living not stressful. And so, yeah, I was trying to figure out what my like rent range was for looking for places so that it wouldn't be a financially stressful move.
And at this, so I understand that as a context, you're thinking about finances and rent. At this very moment, when you're doing this 900 plus 967 is roughly 1,800. And so by the time I move here in August, is that experience more about just the words, or is it these words and also some accompanying something about, about the prices and the finances? And then if so, is that like something separate, or is it just kind of like along with the words?
I would say just generally, and I don't know if this is tied to anything, but I am like comforted by information. So I feel more calm when I feel like I know all angles of a situation. So for trying to figure out my finances and also this move, this like action of me doing this math in my head was sort of me trying to calm myself down about making a big move. Does that answer your question?
In some ways, I don't think, I'm not sure quite what question to ask, because, but just the idea that you have these words. So I guess there's a range of options. Like it could be literally just saying these words, but they could have no meaning. They're just like, as if you're saying blah, 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 blah. It's just sounds. Or it could be like I'm saying these words and also having a whole thought about my rent and what range I can afford and what apartments to afford. And it doesn't seem like it's that. It doesn't seem like there's a whole thought process. And it doesn't seem like the words are completely blah, 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 like random either. So it seems to me like it's something in the range of like being about rent and finances. So yeah, that's what I understand. But I'm still like not quite sure exactly where I'd put it. Does that seem like does that make sense to you?
I think the only argument for this sentence being part of a broader thought process, I guess, is that I think a lot of times I have like these big macro worries, and then I feel like I can make them go away through like zooming in a little bit. So the macro worry is, making a big move and all the finances that are involved with that. And then micro is like literally doing the math to make myself feel better about the bigger thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's more of a process or if that's still kind of small, but that's what I often do.
Is part of like a calming down part of this at this moment? Or
yes.
Okay. And I guess I'm going to take Russ's concern on board that we might be over-articulating. So I think it may very well be. Do you think it's intrinsic to just the words, or is it something different, or are you not sure?
Intrinsic to the words, as in the words.
Like,
sorry, I'm not sure what you mean.
Is it like I'm calmingly saying these words, or is it something like I'm saying these words and separately I'm calming down, or
I mean, the way the words are coming out is not calm. But I think that by going through this thought process, that then calms me down. So it's like a secondary thing. So it's not a calming thought process at all.
Okay. So I think there could be some emotional part here, but I'll take Russ's concern on board that like emotions are really hard to talk about. So sometimes on other days we might see more. So again, I wouldn't try to pin down too much. So yeah, those are all the questions I have here.
So shall we do this again?
Yeah.
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 So I guess the easiest starting point, and then people lob up from there, but I think it's always to go, does this time next week work, since it worked this week, and then let's move from there.
Could we do Thursday,
yes.
actually? For me, it's easier.
Thursday the 30th we would be talking about.
Thursday the 30th.
I could do the same time on the Thursday, yes.
Same.
That'd be okay with me.
Great.
Okay.
That was quite easy. That's too easy, really. There's 4 of us in different time zones. That was quite impressive.
Yeah. So I'll send the calendar invite. I'm going to try to do a different platform because Zencaster has been weird for me lately. Like even the session was just so laggy, so much lag.
Yeah.
And then there's audio sync issues. All right. Let me pause the recording for now.
So before you do that,
wait.
Kerry, do you have any questions, comments, whatever that you would like to make before we depart here?
No, just overall, I still have I just want to be helpful. So I hope this is helpful. Those were the thoughts that were running through my brain while we were doing this. But maybe I will be more comfortable as we go through things with, not every answer has to be the most.
So I think you're doing a great job. And I think we're the object is to try to get the group of us better at this as we go, and I think we're on the track.
Good.
Can I ask you a question from selfishly for sort of my project here? Did you find it challenging, like in the moment, to do this? Like, how was your broad experience of trying to do it?
I writing that rubric down for myself was really helpful. Because I think I was nervous. Like the first time it went off, I was like, oh my God, I need to remember what I was just thinking, and was worried about it. So having that sort of note in my phone of just the prompts and then I could answer it really quickly. So it was more accurate. That was really helpful. And I completely forgot that the thing was in my ear. So that was good. I thought I was going to be more aware of that, but I wasn't. So that was good.
Great.
I guess I would like to say something about the rubric. So if it helps you, fine. But our object is not to get to a catalog. So, for example, the last beep that we were talking about, which was the banana beep, we didn't really care about what you were, where you were, what you were doing, or whatever. What we cared about was your experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so the things that were in the rubric, it's fine with me for you to use a rubric, but our interest is in the experience. The rest of that stuff is
secondary. Got it.
Okay.
Very fascinating. This is the first time I've been on this side of things, and wow, it's wild.
I really want to, once this is all over, I really want to get a drink, Mel, and be like, what was your side? It's so different.
I tell ya, we're different people. I'm glad we're friends, though. We are living life differently. That's all I'll say.
All right. So we're going to be on for Thursday at the same time as we did today.
All right.